Reading a dog's test allergy sheet doesn't have to be complicated, but if you don't know what to look out for, then it can be a little bit complicated. And so in this video, I am going to be explaining to you what the test allergy does, how it works, and how you can read it at home so that you don't have to go back to the vet and so that you don't have to spend any more money. As a dog nutritionist, I always say that there are three main types of allergies. We have food allergies, we have environmental allergies, and we have breed-specific allergies. Nutrition allergies are by far the most common ones, and these can be akin to people being lactose intolerant, whereby ingredient by ingredient there is something or some things that we are giving the dog that are causing a reaction with which the dog is not agreeing with. And so as we do with people, we have to go ingredient by ingredient and tolerance level by tolerance level in order to ascertain what's actually triggering the allergy or the reaction. And we will cover these more later on in the video. The second one is environmental, and these tend to go with spring or with the seasons. Sometimes it can be pollen, sometimes it can be dust mites, it can be certain insects, it can be grass, it can be whatever the environmental allergy or reaction might be in your dog. And these will fluctuate, and you will potentially have to go back to the vet then to get some sort of steroid to manage that condition if the dog gnaws at paws or if the dog is itching all the time during certain seasons. The third one is breed specific, and especially nowadays with the prevalence of certain breeds, if you have a breed that hasn't been bred properly, or if you have a dog that has been over-engineered to look a specific way, those dogs sometimes can have some inherent allergies and inherent health conditions, and allergies is unfortunately one of those. Irrespective of that, it's very, very important that you can identify which one or which ones your dog has so that you know for definite that it is a food allergy or that it is an environmental allergy, and you have to watch out for the spring and dust mites, for example. Now today I'm going to be talking about blood allergy tests, and those are the most reliable ones. The hair allergy tests are not reliable, and you are basically wasting your money. So once you have made the decision to get a blood allergy test, your vet will give you this test sheet. And by the way, make sure you keep the darn thing. Make sure you keep the sheet so that you can look at it, so that you can contrast, and so that you can keep a log of everything you give the dog. It doesn't really make sense, and we see this all the time, for vets to keep the test allergy sheet so that the customer doesn't really know what the dog is allergic to. If the dog is allergic to something, I want to have the full list of ingredients the dog is allergic to so that I can check what I'm giving the dog so that I don't trigger a further reaction. And this single piece of advice is going to save you hundreds of dollars or hundreds of pounds in vet bills. So for example here, what you can see is that this dog is not allergic to corn, is not allergic to wheat, is not allergic to lamb, but it is allergic to rice, and it says positive here. For example, it says it's allergic to oats and it's allergic to kelp, for example. In terms of grasses, the dog is allergic to bluegrass or June grass, the dog is allergic to Bermuda or red top. The point is for you to look trigger point by trigger point and try to see what the dog is reactive to. And so with that information, what I want you to do is read the ingredients for everything you give your dog. If you see, for example, that your dog is allergic to rice and you see a veterinary prescription diet and that contains rice, for example, then I want you to put that away. If your dog, for example, is allergic to pork and you are giving your dog some allergy tablets, and those, for example, have pork flavoring or pork fat or whatever the case might be, the right thing for you to do is to stop that treatment, is to stop giving your dog that food. What you want to do is have transparency as to what you're giving the dog, and sometimes manufacturers will say things like animal fats or poultry meal products or natural flavors, and they will say meat and animal derivatives. And so if I have a dog with a chicken allergy or with a beef allergy or with an ostrich allergy or whatever the case might be, and I see natural flavors or I see animal fats or I see anything like that, then I will not be 100% sure as to what I'm giving the dog. And so what I need to do is move away, transition away onto a food that has clarity on the back of the ingredients, and we will see whether the dog is reactive to the particular ingredients or not. That's the only way you are going to be able to get away with it and to improve your dog's condition. Let me give you a quick word on veterinary prescription diets and why we do not like them. We don't like them because a lot of the most common allergens tend to be prevalent in these diets, in these veterinary prescription diets. Corn, wheat, soy, things like meat and animal derivatives, things like natural flavors, things like animal fats, for example. The manufacturer reserves the right to change recipe from batch to batch to batch, and so you will not know what you're giving the dog from one bag to another. For example, in the UK, the most recommended veterinary prescription diet contains sugar, and so whether my dog is healthy or not healthy, I do not want to give my dog sugar. I don't want to give my dog meat and animal derivatives or poultry fat, for example, if my dog is reactive to chicken or turkey or whatever. I want clarity on ingredients, and I want to choose a food that will not contain the very ingredients that are prevalent on the test allergy sheet. There's also something called a threshold, and a threshold means that sometimes chicken fat as a binder, for example, which is the most common protein a lot of manufacturers do include, can be okay because it might only be 1% of the overall recipe, and so your dog might be okay on chicken. Your dog might be reactive to chicken, but your dog might be okay with chicken fat, which is about 1%. Now, the dog might not be okay on 20% of their diet coming from chicken, and that will trigger an actual reaction. But you will always have a bit of a buffer. Sometimes not. Sometimes if your dog is reactive to chicken or your dog is reactive to wheat, for example, a whiff of wheat is going to trigger the allergy, or a whiff of beef is going to trigger the allergy, but you will not know until you either test it or that you know it. But the most important thing for you to do is for you to keep the test allergy sheet, for you to do this religiously, and for you to compare and contrast ingredient by ingredient. Otherwise, you will not be able to know what you're giving the dog. Another thing you should do is be very, very mindful of any treatments you give the dog. So if the dog is on Apoquel or Cytopoint, or the dog is on flea and tick medication or treatments every single month or every 2 weeks or whatever the case might be, those tablets, those treatments are going to slowly but surely deteriorate your dog's health, just like they would your body. If you take tablets every single day, if you take treatments every single day, those will be metabolized in the liver, or even if they do not get metabolized in the liver, your overall reaction to the treatment is going to erode slowly but surely. It won't be as efficient as the first or the second time you take something, because that's just the nature of things. That's how things work. So if you plow a lot of treatments into your dog all the time, then those treatments might chip away at your dog's health very, very slowly but surely. I am not against pharmaceuticals, I am not against medications, I am not against anything like that. I do believe in science, and I do believe those things work. Apoquel works, Cytopoint works, flea and tick treatments for dogs do actually work. So if you see fleas and you see ticks, by all means you apply the treatment. However, if you do not see any fleas, any ticks, or anything like that, then try to not give it to the dog, because it's not doing the dog a favor. You aren't aiding your dog by plowing on more and more medication. That's only going to suppress their immune system and is going to make them weaker. And the same has to be said for allergy treatments. Only give the treatments as sporadically as possible. Do not give treatments to your dog willy-nilly, because you won't really then know whether whether it's the food that's working, it's the actual treatment that's working, or what is working. You want to know what's working and what's not working. To keep the dog on infinite treatments forever is absolutely ludicrous, and it's absolutely ridiculous, and we do not recommend it, and we would absolutely not do that. And by the way, if you want to know what the best dog food is, you should download our free guide, How to Feed Your Dog Better. The link will be down below. Dog allergies can actually be a minefield, and so you can go back to the vet a number of times and spend a bunch of money without actually getting any results. So before you do that, I would highly encourage you to watch this video next, because we go into depth into allergies and how to treat them naturally without having to spend more money.